So I recently started filming a new project, a feature film, and I want to break down the camera equipment that I'm using, how I'm using it, and go into detail of my gear philosophy because I'm getting a result that I'm really happy with while spending very little money and having a great deal of flexibility. And I think it could help other people out there. I'm shooting with essentially a two-person crew, myself as writer, director, cinematographer, producer, and a second person as a camera assistant, focus puller, and general all-round PA. This is a different person depending on who's available and which shoot, but it allows me to focus more on the creative work and have someone else who's doing a lot of the heavy lifting, dealing with transportation, doing all the jobs that you would normally do on a set as a PA. My A camera is the Canon C500 Mark II. I've been shooting on Sumi-Ray primes, which are PL only, and sometimes Canon L series glass in EF. And I swap out the Canon C500's mount from PL to EF, not usually in the middle of the shoot, but depending on what shoot I'm doing. Attached to the C500 Mark II, I have a remote follow focus. I have a 7-inch external screen, and connected to that screen, I have the Axoon CineView Nano, which sends the signal from the screen to a iPad. It's an iOS device communicator and allows the camera assistant to pull focus from that iPad while I shoot. To deal with the iPad battery, it's in another Axoon accessory, the power cage, and it has an NP battery connected to the back of it, so it will run 8-10 hours fine. And I just have this on a light stand. It gets moved around depending on what's in frame, what's not in frame. The camera, the follow focus, and the monitor are powered from a V-mount battery on the camera, but I also leave the native battery in so I can swap out the V-mount without the camera itself losing power. The monitor has this dummy MP battery on the back of it, which allows me to connect the CineView without having to run another cable to power it, and then I connect a short HDMI cable from the monitor to the CineView. I've used both the SE and the Nano, and for what I use, the Nano seems fine. These little units are just around $100. I shoot with the A camera either on a tripod or on this device called the Ergo Rig, which allows me to shoot handheld when I want to, shoot shoulder mounted when I want to, with much more stability and much less fatigue. It generally gives me much more freedom to move around and move with the camera than, say, an Easy Rig, which adds too much movement as I walk and makes it a little harder to get through doors and get into strange places. If I don't need a remote follow focus, meaning I'm just shooting people talking and the camera's on a tripod, then I'll use a device called the CMO Pro, which connects the camera straight to the iPad. It gives me a nice big bright display on top of the camera. I know that a lot of people get kind of pulled into the black hole of gear when they're planning a project, and they spend an inordinate amount of their time comparing specs online and pixel peeping and basically trying to get the perfect rig when they don't even know what the situation they're going to be shooting in is and how they're going to have to configure it. My advice and what I did is to basically dive in with the rig that you have, the rig that you're familiar with, the one that they're using every single day. Maybe rent lenses, but don't go and rent a camera that's not your everyday shooting camera. Choose the one that you know the best, the one that you know how to solve problems with, and then see what problems you run into, and then if you need to solve that issue, then buy more gear. I was originally shooting with an external monitor and a Teradek, shooting the image to another Teradek receiver and then another monitor that had to power. And I just felt it was too many moving parts, too complex for what I wanted. So the iPad and the Axoon simplified that process for me and allowed me to shoot quicker and cheaper and get more work done easier. And you might hear this and think, well, where's your sound guy? Where's your boom operator? Where's your sound mixer? I'm actually shooting everything with 32-bit float audio captured on these Tentacle sync packs, which then sync to the Tentacle sync units that are connected to the cameras, both my A camera, the C500, and my B camera, the R5C, I'll tell you about in a second. And I'm using Saramonic mics connected to these. And then as a backup, and so that I can hear the conversation more clearly, I have the Saramonic Soundbird V6 connected to a Saramonic XLR broadcaster And that's wirelessly connected to a XLR pickup on the C500 Mark II. So that then gives me a boom audio, and I just attach that usually to a light stand or to the main boom that's booming my key light if the characters are sitting down, or I'll place it on the table if they're not, or somewhere close. This allows me to have headphone sound when we're shooting, so I can hear the actor's performance, gives me a guide track, and then gives me an extra case in case the actors, move and ruffle their clothes at the same time as they speak some critical line, and for whatever reason that happens the same on every single take. So this is my backup. The C500 Mark II can't record 32-bit audio. Maybe in future updates it will be able to, but 32-bit on the tentacle sync units means that you can't clip. The person can whisper or they can scream, and you can bring one up and one down and equalize everything. It doesn't get clipped anymore. Now you might be wondering, why don't I rent an ARRI Alexa or even Alexa Classic to shoot a project like a feature film that's going to be hopefully shown on cinemas and mastered for streaming? Now, you can rent these for $200, $300, $400 a day now, and they do have more dynamic range than Canon. That's definitely true. There is no such thing as a blank check when it comes to independent film. To hire a more technically superior camera, I would have to find that money somewhere else. I would have to cut down on what I'm paying the actors, what we're eating, where we're traveling, what I'm paying my assistant. When you come down to it, the extra 2 stops of dynamic range aren't worth the time and expense it would take me to get hold of that camera. And in addition, I'm not familiar with that camera. I don't know how to shoot on the ARRI Alexa. I haven't had the hundreds of hours that I have had on the Canon system. I don't know the menus. I don't know how to grade that footage as well as the Canon. I don't know where it clips. I don't know what the sound floor is. I don't know how I can do all the things that I do day to day on my Canon C500 and R5C and C70. And so it's a strange thing for me when I hear people who've worked a whole career with one camera system jump to a more expensive camera system for one project, when in reality, you're actually going to get an inferior result with an unfamiliar camera system, even if it actually is better. It's like if you race your Toyota Supra every single day and someone offers you a Ferrari, the Ferrari might have more horsepower. It might technically be a better car, but if you don't know it as well, you can't drive it as well, that's wasted on you. Plus, it's never a free thing. It's always going to come at the expense of something else. I said before that I used a 2-camera system, and I have the Canon R5C as well. I use that as my BTS camera, and I do hire a third person to shoot BTS because I have this YouTube channel and I use this footage for other things as well. But the advantage is if I have that R5C on a gimbal and I need a walking shot, then I can just quickly give my A camera to my BTS guy. He can get BTS of it on the main camera, and then I can shoot the walking or the moving or the motion on the BTS camera. If I'm shooting cinema raw light on the R5C, it not only cuts really well, but it's very close to the C500 Mark II footage, given that it's a quarter the price. You do lose dynamic range. Absolutely, you're about 2 stops less, but it's also full frame. It has a PL adapter to take the sumi-ray lenses, has an EF adapter to take anything else the C500 Mark II is going to be equipped with. I feel like they integrate really well. It even has timecode in, and I have a tentacle sync box for the R5C as well that mounts to it, so I can synchronize both cameras together. So I've had 3 or 4 shoots now with this system, and it seems to be working really well. It is really quick to get together. The footage coming from it looks fantastic to my eye. I've been really, really happy with the result. There's something fantastic about being able to pull together a shoot with 24 hours notice, because all you need to find is the actors and one other person or 2 other people, rather than having to get a whole group of everyone together and deal with everyone's availability and transport and food. I would much rather make this type of film with a small crew, almost no crew, and a small cast than I would deal with all the headaches and the conversations and the planning and the paperwork that goes into 20 people on set. I feel much more productive, I feel much more creative, and I think that is when you do your best work. If you want to hear more about this, check out Feature Film Studio. You can also check out the links to the Axoon and the Canon gear that I talk about in the description. They're both available from B&H, who are also a sponsor of this video. Thank you very much for watching. I will see you next time.